All right, today we are diving deep into one of the most wild and, honestly, mysterious chapters in the entire Bible, Daniel chapter 10. This is the one that pulls back the curtain on everything we see and shows us this invisible war happening just behind the scenes, a conflict that literally shaped the fate of nations.
So right from the get-go, the chapter hits us with a major puzzle. The 70-year exile in Babylon, this huge, generations-long crisis for the Jewish people, is finally over. They're allowed to go home. You'd expect massive celebrations, right? Relief. But instead, what do we find? We find the prophet Daniel deep in mourning. So what is going on?
To figure this out, we gotta look at the timeline. So, in 538 BC, Cyrus the Great, the king of Persia, he makes this incredible decree. The Jews can go home and rebuild. Awesome. A year later, the first groups are back in Jerusalem and they start working on the temple. But then, look at the date. It's 536 BC, a full 2 years after the good news that we find Daniel mourning his heart out for 3 straight weeks. Clearly, something went very, very wrong. And the source material for this explainer points us to a very real-world problem, which you can read about over in the book of Ezra. It turns out the enemies of the rebuilding project they'd hired lobbyists to go to the Persian court and just wreck the whole plan. And it worked. The construction on God's temple completely stalled because of politics. So this earthly crisis is what kicks off Daniel's spiritual one. Now, what's so cool here is how the text itself gives us these little clues about what's really important. Our source points out this amazing literary pattern in the very first verse. It's called a chiastic structure. The easiest way to think about it is like a literary sandwich. You have ideas layered in a specific order, A, B, C, and then back out, C, B, A, forcing you to pay attention to what's right in the middle. And check this out. This is how it works in verse 1. It starts with a word being revealed and ends with a vision. Then it mentions Daniel's other name, and on the other side that he understood the word. But boom, right there in the center, the meat of the sandwich is this. The word was true, and it was about a great host or a great conflict. The structure itself is screaming at us from the very beginning. This chapter is a true revelation about a massive struggle. So after 3 weeks of intense mourning and fasting, Daniel finds himself on the banks of the Tigris River. And he's about to have an encounter. But this isn't some gentle, comforting vision, no. What he sees is absolutely terrifying. He looks up and he sees this man, this divine being. And the description is just overwhelming. His face isn't just bright, it's like lightning. You immediately get this sense of raw, untamable power. It keeps going. His eyes, they aren't just sharp, they're like flaming torches, like they can see right through you, burning away everything that's false. Our source material points out that he's described like a divine warrior, all metal and fire. And then, the voice. When this being speaks, it's not one voice. It's like the roar of a huge crowd, an entire multitude of people all speaking at once. The power is it's unimaginable. And for Daniel, it's completely devastating. Daniel says it himself, this experience completely shattered him. He says his own splendor, his life force, it just turned to destruction. He lost every ounce of strength and collapsed into what the original Hebrew text calls a deep sleep. And we're not talking about a nap here. This is a death-like coma. He's completely undone. So you have to be wondering why did Daniel have to go through all of this? Why the 21 days of agony just to be knocked unconscious? Well, after he collapses, another angel, a messenger, finally shows up to explain the cosmic drama that's been playing out. This messenger tells Daniel, look, I heard your prayers on day 1, but I was delayed. And the reason for the delay is just stunning. He says, the chief of the kingdom of Persia stood up to me for 21 days. This wasn't a scheduling mix-up. This was spiritual warfare. So our source material interprets this as a battle of wills happening in the spiritual realm, right behind the earthly politics. On one side, you have a good angel, probably Gabriel, trying to influence the Persian kings to be favorable to God's people. And on the other side, you have this opposing power, the angelic chief of Persia, doing everything he can to influence those same kings to shut the whole project down. And this spiritual fight was a total stalemate. For every single one of the 21 days that Daniel was mourning and praying, this angel was blocked. He couldn't get through on his own. The opposition was that strong. So what broke the deadlock? He had to call for backup. And not just any backup, Michael, who is called the angelic chief of Israel, had to come and help him break through.
Okay, so Daniel finally gets this incredible explanation, but he is still a wreck. He's on the ground, face down, can't speak, completely powerless. And the way that he is brought back to his feet, well, it's a prophecy all on its own.
Check out the pattern that our source highlights here. It's fascinating. Daniel is restored in stages, and there's a rhythm to it. Touch, then word. A touch gets him from the ground to his knees, but it's a word that gets him to his feet. Then another touch opens his mouth so he can speak, but it's the final word that gives him back all his strength. It's this incredible sequence where a physical touch prepares him to receive a spiritual word, and that word is what brings the real power.
And this really brings us to the ultimate point of the whole chapter. This whole experience, it isn't just about Daniel's wild vision. It's revealing something incredibly profound about where real spiritual strength comes from. And get this, here's another one of those literary details that just makes you go, whoa. The source notes that the Hebrew term for word shows up exactly 21 times in this section, the exact same number as the days of Daniel's mourning and the angel's battle. The text is practically shouting at us that the answer to the 21-day conflict is found in the power of the divine word. But why that pattern? Why the touch first and then the word? To explain this, the source material brings in this powerful quote. It suggests that, sometimes people are just too broken, too weak, too much like Daniel lying face down in the dust to even be able to receive a life-changing word. First, there has to be a touch, some kind of healing, some comfort, some help. And that leaves us with a really powerful thought to chew on. If this ancient story is revealing a fundamental pattern for how we're strengthened, that a divine touch makes us ready to hear a divine word, what could that possibly mean for us today? What kind of touch, what act of kindness or healing or help might prepare us, or maybe someone we know, to finally be able to hear the very word we need most?